When I found out that I had Hodgkin's disease, it was certainly a tough day for myself and my family.
I love the game of basketball, I always will. I just feel that it's time for me to move away from the game of basketball.
This happened to me on a fourth when I was playing a match, and I absolutely had no chance.
The personalities.
Things just went so quickly, and I was definitely elated. I enjoyed the pandemonium. The celebration at home plate is something that's going to stick out as my #1 highlight in 16 years of Major League Baseball.
Well, I got my Christmas present June 11 when Serge Savard hired me as a coach of the Montreal Canadiens. What a great reward. That's a famous Stanley Cup ring.
You know, it hasn't really sunk in yet. It's, you know, I feel that this is the best race that I've ever driven.
The champions.
I'm going to Disney World. I'm going to Disneyland. I'm not going to Disney World, but I'm going to West Embassy Mall.
And the plays of the year.
It's Leon West.
Oh, my goodness!
And stop that, he brought it down. He brought the whole goal down.
1993, the year in review.
Again, everyone. Welcome to our TSN Control Center. Happy holidays. I'm Vic Roeder.
And I'm Gino Rado. Great to have you along. Over the next 60 minutes, we'll take a chronological look at some of the year's top sports stories for you.
And Gino will begin in January with a two-time Stanley Cup champion, the only player, let's see, to win the Art Ross, the Hart, the Calder, the Conn Smythe, and Masterton trophies. And in 1993, he received the Lyle Conacher Award as the Canadian Athlete of the Year as well.
But this year, Mario Lemieux's story is more about human courage than athletic accomplishment.
When I found out that I had Hodgkin's disease, it was certainly a tough day for myself and my family. And, you know, on the way down to my house, could hardly drive because of the tears and crying the whole day.
Here comes Lemieux. He scores!
Opposing goalies could not stop him. Only injuries could. But this was more than the chronic back pain Mario Lemieux was used to dealing with. This was cancer. And suddenly, to one of hockey's brightest stars, the game was the least of anyone's concerns.
This is not about hockey. This is about a very precious human being who is going to recover.
It has been recommended that he undergo 4 weeks of radiation treatment. His prognosis is excellent.
If I come back in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or next year, that's not very important right now. My health is certainly more important than playing hockey.
And there is the hand from Mario Lemieux.
The day the treatment ended, Lemieux boarded a plane and rejoined the Penguins in Philadelphia. Any rust from a 4-week layoff did not show.
Back to Lemieux. Lemieux comes in, shoots and scores! Mario Lemieux drills it in, his 40th of the year.
From that moment to his emotional first game back in Pittsburgh, down the regular season stretch, this was every bit of the magnificent player fans had come to know. Even though he trailed in the scoring race by 12 points when he returned, he went on to win by 12. Heading into the playoffs, the Penguins were favored to win their 3rd straight Stanley Cup crown. But in the Patrick Division Final, Lemieux's back started giving him trouble again. And the underdog New York Islanders, without their star, Pierre Turgeon, upset the defending champs in 7 games.
Mario Lemieux.
In addition to the Art Ross Trophy for scoring leader, Lemieux took 2 other individual awards. The Bill Masterton Trophy honoring his perseverance, and his 2nd career Hart Trophy as league MVP. Shortly after, Lemieux had more reason for joy, marrying his longtime girlfriend Nathalie, and more reason for concern because of his ailing back. Lemieux had surgery during the summer, and so far this season, he's played in only 4 games. Though he played less this year than any other, Mario Lemieux showed more of his character than ever, securing his place among the most magnificent athletes in sport.
Without a doubt. Hopefully it is just one isolated case rather than a statement of society.
Monica Seles attacked on the court in Germany. It was an event that would change the look of women's tennis for the entire year.
And like so many incidents of this kind, it came without warning.
They were frightening screams in Hamburg. As Monica Seles struggled to grasp what had happened, fans and security struggled with her attacker. It was April 30th when Gunter Parsch plunged a knife into her back during a change of court.
I remember pretty much just sitting on the bench And suddenly I just felt room, and I just felt pain. I knew something was wrong, and I saw blood. I said, whoa. And then I remember I looked back and I saw this person holding his hand up again like he wants to stab me, and I
Charged with attempted murder, Parsh told police he did it to help Steffi Graf regain the world's #1 ranking. Till then, Sellis was on top of the world, coming off a win at the Australian Open over her arch-rival, Graf. Ironically, with Sellis on the shelf, Graf regained the #1 ranking, while Sellis slipped to #4.
We are treating it as a special case because it is a special case, and you can't just keep somebody #1 for forever. Hopefully it's only going to happen once, and she will have ample time to get her ranking back.
Sellis hopes to be back on court early in the new year. Her return more a question of mental readiness than physical.
I think as soon as I'm going to be able physically to swing a racket and hit a ball, I'm going to go out there and swing it, and I'm going to practice hard. But I think for me, I'm going to have to deal with it emotionally also, that it did happen. It's not a bad dream. I have to wake up.
Monica's just going to have to do one giant big gut check and just try and get this thing behind her, both physically, emotionally, put in the hard work. And if she does, and everything, if she can come back on as she was, she will be #1 again.
As for Günter Parsh, a German court caused outrage by giving him a suspended sentence, something Sellis could not believe. The prosecution is planning an appeal.
Tough to get over something like that.
No, I don't think the mental is going to be the most difficult.
Time for a short break right now, but when we come back on the Year in Review, we'll look at Paul Tracy's breakthrough year.
It was a remarkable year, and those hard-working Montreal Canadiens, they really had to work overtime to take home hockey's top prize in 1993.
There's a lot of tradition here, and I tell you, the people were right behind us, and they get so excited here, and we're a great place to play, and we're happy for the people because they love hockey so much, and it's just a great feeling.
When I was injured, I tried to learn a little bit more about myself, a little bit more about what was going to allow me to win at the World Championships. So for me, it was like a 2 years worth of work and emotion and trying to get to that race, and when it happened for me, it was just like I created that win, and I created the world champion in myself. I'm a good glider, and right at the top flats, I was just skiing my best and just letting skis go where they wanted to go. I was working the rolls really well, which I hadn't been doing all week. Coming into the bottom half of the course, I gave up a little bit down there, but I think I was just feeling my way through that section because, you know, I was a little bit off balance with the one hand, and just coming to the finish, over the finish pitch, I knew that I had won the race, and it was an exciting feeling to come into the finish and sort of read the crowd, see what they were doing, if they were cheering. And I think when I came to a stop, I could sort of hear this roar coming up, and I looked back at the board, and I didn't look in the middle, I looked straight to the top because I knew that my name was going to be there.
It sure was. Certainly one of the proudest moments for Canadians in 1993, winning the world title and doing it all with a broken wrist. But as we found out, Kate Pace wasn't finished.
No, not at all. In fact, after winning the downhill season finale in March, she picked up right where she left off by winning the first event of the 93-94 season with a victory just a few weeks ago at Teen France. All right, to the ice now. Okay. And in 1993, Lord Stanley's Holy Grail celebrated its 100th birthday.
And maybe that was part of the reason that the playoffs proved to be so exciting. Two themes really ran through the NHL postseason play, didn't they?
Yes, Vic, quite simply, upsets and overtime.
At 12:09 on Wednesday morning, 14 minutes and 50 seconds of the second overtime period.
In one of every 3 playoff games, 3 periods were not enough. A Stanley Cup record for overtime that helped accentuate the drama of another playoff ritual, the upset. The most shocking first-round upsets were Buffalo's 4-game sweep of first-place Boston and St. Louis's 4 straight victories over first-place Chicago. Both decided in OT, as was Toronto's first-round upset over Detroit in 7 games. The master of extra play proved to be Montreal. The Habs rallied to beat Quebec in 6 thanks to 2 overtime victories. The upset of the spring came in round 2, after the New York Islanders lost their star Pierre Turgeon in round 1 thanks to Dale Hunter. Few gave them a prayer of challenging Pittsburgh in the Patrick Final. But as the saying goes, anything can happen in overtime of the 7th game.
David Bullock, I
While the LA Kings saw only one overtime game in their first 2 rounds, it broke the back of the favored Vancouver Canucks in the Smythe Division Final. Gretzky's Kings went on from there to go where they'd never been, round 3. Their next opponent, an overtime veteran. During Toronto's first 2 games against St. Louis in the Norris Final, the teams went to double overtime twice. The Leafs eventually took the series in 7. Meanwhile, the masters of time and a half turned a close Adams Final into a 4-game rout. In all 4, Montreal beat Buffalo by a mere goal, the final 3 in overtime. That prowess continued in the Wales Conference Final against New York. The Habs and Islanders went into OT twice. The Habs won them both and won the series in 5. With Montreal assured a spot in the Cup Final, talk of a classic Canadiens-Leafs matchup was irresistible, especially when this overtime goal gave Toronto a 3-2 series lead in the Campbell Final. But the Kings, led by the Great One, rallied in Game 6 overtime to send the series back to Toronto. They then sent Toronto back down to earth in Game 7. After winning Game 1 of the Cup Final in Montreal, the Kings were poised to take a 2-0 lead when the Habs caught Marty McSorley with an illegal stick. Montreal scored on the power play and then won in overtime. In this year of unprecedented extra work, Montreal made it pay the most, winning 10 of 11 overtime matches, including Games 3 and 4 in LA, both on goals by John LeClair to move within 1 game of a championship. In the end, the biggest reason for Montreal's overtime success was goalie Patrick Roy, who secured the Habs' 24th championship. Fittingly, Roy won the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. The only thing that didn't fit in this final game of the Stanley Cup playoffs, it only took 60 minutes to play.
And while Patrick Roy lofted the Stanley Cup high above his head, the new bench boss quietly earned his first cup in his rookie season with the Canadiens.
And Michael Whalen had a chance to sit down with Jacques Demers.
Well, 1993 was a very special year for Jacques Demers. It marked his return to coaching after a 2-year hiatus. And of course, he took his team all the way to the Stanley Cup final and won it. And Jacques, you can't argue with 1993 as far as you're concerned. It was a good year, huh?
Well, when you're a young kid, you always dream of winning the Stanley Cup, and certainly being from Montreal and being a French Canadian, you always certainly dream of coaching the Montreal Canadiens. And Serge Savard gave me a tremendous Christmas gift, early Christmas gift, June 11th of 1993 to coach his team. So I certainly did not want to let him down, and I was very fortunate to have the right group of athletes, great goaltender, a lot of good quality character players, the Mullers, Carbo, Mike Keane, I'm certainly forgetting some, but all around this dressing room there was a lot of character and great young defensemen and a good group of kids.
Jacques, if there was one memory from the past year, from 1993, that sticks out more than another, what would it be?
You know, when I look, Quebec Nordiques, first round, down 2-0, 95, 99%, maybe 1% left, thinking that we could come back. We were beat before it started. Imagine now when it's 2-0 for Quebec. And the way this team, this young group of athletes that I'm so proud of, stuck together, you know, and nobody panicked. We stuck so much together that we beat the Quebec Nordiques 4 straight. And I think from there on, we went on and certainly win the big one, which was the Stanley Cup. There was never anything easy. Took 10 overtime games, won 16 out of 20 games at one given time, 11 straight. And winning the playoffs, you have to have that kind of attitude. A lot of people still say today, possibly we shouldn't have won it, except our players thought we should have won it because that's the kind of guys we have. And we always believed in each other. And we're the Stanley Cup champs, and we deserve it.
It's going to be tough to top 1993, especially in this city where everybody keeps saying, what else can you do for me?
Well, it's already tough. There's no question about it. We expect to win every night. I think the real fans will understand how it was won last year. It took total commitment from every single player. I believe we are capable of repeating. I know people don't think so, but they forgot to sit and walk around that dressing room and look at the character of the players. To be more proud of a group of athletes, and especially giving me, as a coach, 10 years in the National Hockey League, my first Stanley Cup ring. And we all know, Michael, there's been coaches and players who played 15, 16, and maybe sometimes 18 years in the NHL and never got close to that. So it's a tremendous, tremendous 93 for me as a person.
Okay, well, the best in 94, Jacques.
Thanks, Michael.
It was a year of both tragedy and glory in the world of auto racing.
Yeah, Vic, stock car racing lost 2 of its best in Alan Kulwicki and Davey Allison, both killed away from the track.
However, it was also the year that world driving champion Nigel Mansell arrived to become the IndyCar king, and he did it in his rookie season. while Toronto's Paul Tracy showed that he just may be the heir to Mansell's throne. Always been curious, when you were about to cross the finish line here for the win, did you hear the people and how excited they were?
Well, I knew how excited everybody was, even just taking the lead early on the race. I came around behind the stadium there where the grandstand start, and I could hear the crowd cheering then. So it's, just coming back here, it gives you a tremendous feeling inside to what happened the weekend.
Paul Tracy salutes the fans.
And I think it's an added compliment when you think that people compared it to Gilles Villeneuve's win in the Canadian Grand Prix. I mean, the biggest win by a Canadian driver at home since then.
It's a tremendous compliment. I looked at Jill's win as probably the biggest race of all time in Canada. I look at mine as another stone that's set on the path for Canadian drivers. And it's a tremendous compliment when people say that, but it's got a lot more steps to take and hopefully some more wins.
You did an awful lot of growing up this year, if I may say. You did it personally with the birth of your first child just before the Indianapolis 500. But you grew up, I think, professionally as a driver as well. Would you agree?
I think so. I've had a lot of changes in my life since this time last year. I'd gotten married before the season started, had a baby in May, and won some races along the way and was able to put together a good season. I made some mistakes where I cost myself some wins, places like Phoenix and Milwaukee and Mid-Ohio, where I should have won races and I didn't. But it's you look at it, looking at the whole season in general, I was able to put it together a good season. I know that I should have won the championship, but I didn't, and that's what drives you to go into '94. I'm looking at that, and I want to improve and just try to pick up the pieces where I ended the season off.
Yeah, you had 5 wins, the same as Nigel, who wins the driver's title. He was very complimentary at times with you. At other times, though, he was critical of the way you raced. I think he was totally surprised that you were willing to go wheel to wheel with him, were you?
Well, I think so. He should be used to that, coming from a European background with Formula One drivers.
Did he not have enough respect, you think, for IndyCar drivers?
Well, I don't know. I think he was under the impression that was such a different style of driving, and it's I'd done some racing in Europe, and I know what it's all about, and I'm willing to race wheel to wheel, and I think it kind of took him by surprise a couple of times. My first goal is to try to win an IndyCar championship. I got a couple more years on my contract, and from there I'll look at Formula One. It's been a goal of mine since I was 6 years old to race in Formula One and to follow in Gilles' footsteps, to win races in Formula One, maybe win a world championship. That's my ultimate goal. I want to try to achieve that in my lifetime.
When we come back, we'll look at the Toronto Blue Jays' second World Series championship.
But we'll take a look at it through the eyes of Paul Molitor, a man who made a difficult choice to leave Milwaukee.
But he definitely fulfilled the dream with the Blue Jays.
The winners and still world champions, the Toronto Blue Jays.
When you take a defeat and turn it around the way we did with Joe's swing and turn it into victory and have it mean so much, particularly to a player like myself who had never been there before after 16 years, to be in that winner's circle, that's where the emotion took over.
They're ready to snap it back. It's 38-all. Bills can win it here. Wright puts it down. The kick is on the way, and it is good. And the Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. They win it 41-38. Incredible. What a comeback by the Bills. Boy, the Bills trailed this game 35-3. This place is pandemonium.
Mr. Christie, you make good field goals. A few athletes, I think, anyways, have done more for their sport than Michael Jordan has done for basketball.
Jordan brought worldwide recognition to the NBA and basketball. His name, Bulls jackets and hats, were as common at Madison Square Garden in New York City as at Piccadilly Square in London.
1993, it had the typical Jordan beginning, but a surprising ending.
Left side with the left hand.
At age 30, he was on top of his game. highest scoring average in NBA history. Three-time MVP.
From long range, that's a three.
And along with his Chicago Bulls, a three-peat winner of the NBA championship. In beating Charles Barkley and the Phoenix Suns in this year's six-game final, Michael Jordan was, without a doubt, the king of hoops. No one knew he was about to abdicate.
We went up to Atlantic City at 4 o'clock, gambled.
Rumors of Jordan's gambling habits led to an NBA investigation and led to his appearance in a different kind of court to testify against a noted gambler and convicted felon. His year would get worse.
Today it is with regret that I advise you that a body located in Venticeville, South Carolina has been positively identified as the body of Mr. James Jordan.
In early August, the body of Michael Jordan's father, James, was found in a South Carolina forest. The victim, police said, of a random murder. Michael had not only lost his father, but his best friend, the man who'd been by his side for the biggest moments of his life. In a statement after the tragedy, Michael Jordan said that basketball was the furthest thing from his mind.
And on a cool night in Chicago, the fans here...
Before Game 1 of the American League Championship, Jordan threw out the opening pitch. Before the game was over, Jordan made a hasty exit amid rumors he was about to retire. The next morning, he confirmed the rumor was true.
I'm very solid with my decision of not to play the game of basketball in the NBA. Reasoning being, I've heard a lot of different speculations about my reasons for not playing, but I've always stressed to people that have known me and the media that has followed me that when I lose the sense of motivation and the sense of to prove something as a basketball player, it's time for me to move away from the game of basketball.
Like a deflated tire, the Chicago Bulls roll along without the air that kept them pumped up for 9 seasons. While they and the rest of the NBA do without their brightest star, Michael Jordan slowly does without the spotlight that made him bright and also burned him out.
You know, at first there was a large hue and cry when the Blue Jays failed to re-sign Dave Winfield after their first World Series championship. But in the end, tears for Winfield turned to cheers for a World Series MVP.
A look back now at the Blue Jays year through the eyes of Paul Molitor.
Well, they say, you know, if you can't beat them, join them. So I've been chasing these guys for a long time. Becoming a Blue Jay really didn't seem real until I actually got to spring training, donned the uniform for the first time, and went out there and began my drills with my new teammates. I had felt good about making the choice, and of course, as the year progressed, I became more and more comfortable, and who could have imagined the way that things finally turned out and how perfectly they finally did turn out.
Gone! Home run, Paul Molitor! A shot to left field. He's hit in 26.
Who could have imagined that John Olerud would have the kind of year he did, except you in spring training? So it said, went up to him and said, when are you going to win your first batting title? How much did you enjoy not only your own success in '93, but Olerud's as well?
It was fun to watch his season develop, his outstanding spring training, and he just never lost momentum. But I kid people now that if I knew I was going to finish second, I never would have told them that. You know, I would have had my one chance to win one. But John, the way he was able to maintain his poise and chase that 400 really well into August, it was just an amazing season for him.
I'm sure a big date for you was your first game back in Milwaukee against the team you played for so many years. What was it like?
I'll remember the first at bat, always going up there and having the standing ovation and having a chance to get a base hit and drive in a run. As those next few days went on, there was some boos, and naturally some people were expressing their disappointment with that whole situation. But overall, it was a very positive experience, and that first night back there will be a very memorable one.
The manager of the American League from the world champion Toronto Blue Jays, Cito Gaston.
We're honored by being picked by Cito Gaston to go to the All-Star game, and a lot of Blue Jays got the honor. Was it disappointing or tainted in any way that the Baltimore fans reacted the way they did, especially towards Cito Gaston?
Well, I think everyone was disappointed with what happened, particularly at the end of the game in the Mike Messina situation. I was pleased that he finally came forward and admitted that he was kind of the culprit in that whole deal. I kind of find it almost humorous, though, in looking back at the season and the second half that our team had and the way we were able to go on to win, that people actually question the players that Cito selected.
I want to ask you about a couple of moves that Pat Gillick made during the season that certainly helped the Blue Jays down the stretch. First of all, Tony Fernandez, your comment on what he did, the acquisition of Fernandez from the Mets, did for the Blue Jays.
Very key. He had a lot of big offensive hits for us during the course of the season. So he was in that weight room every day after the game, working hard, trying to better himself. And of course, he took that performance out on the field and became a great shortstop. That was probably one of the biggest moves Pat could have made to ensure the fact that we get back to postseason.
Ricky Henderson.
I was impressed by Ricky. When he came over here and struggled a little bit, I never saw a guy so concerned about trying to get back on track. And that told me that Ricky wasn't about just Ricky. It was about trying to help his team win.
It's a 93-peat. The Blue Jays are champions of the American League East again.
Well, there was a lot of irony, no question, in going back to Milwaukee and having a chance to clinch the division title. My first year being away from that organization. After playing rather poorly the first series there back in June, it was nice to get off to a good start in that series and, of course, to have a big hit and what turned out to be the division-clinching ball game.
That would be the fourth series clincher that Stewart would have pitched.
You know, David had a rough beginning of the season with his injuries, and I know he was unaccustomed to missing time. But he proved as the second half went on his ability to win big games, and of course when his number came up in that sixth and game-clinching performance against the White Sox, I think we all had that confidence that he was going to be the guy to do it for us.
Hit in the air to right field. Carter has room. And the Blue Jays are going back to the World Series.
Batting sixth, the designated hitter, number 19, Paul Molitor.
You know, I think that this probably makes the most sense. I think you want to, put Paul out there in, his most comfortable position, and I think it makes the most sense.
The choice to play first base tonight.
Was it a motivating factor to you that Cito showed the faith in you, because you certainly had some excellent games?
I wanted to play well. I wanted to make his decisions look like the right ones. And when he gave me an opportunity to play not only first base the first game against the left-hander, but the two games at third against the right-handed pitching, I went out there and tried to make the best of it. And thankfully, I didn't get too many chances defensively, but it didn't hurt us one way or the other, and I was able to swing a hot bat throughout the series.
And the Toronto Blue Jays have won the highest scoring game in postseason history.
I've been through a lot of emotional games, up and down roller coaster type games, but by far that one stands out as a number one up and down highlight type of game in terms of significance and of course going on the win.
Line into center, falling fast to hit. Third of the night for Molitor. Henderson stops at second.
When I got on first and realized we were just a base hit away from sending the game to extra innings, that was my thought process.
The run that would win the World Series is at first, and Joe Carter is the batter.
Not in any means do you envision a home run that's going to end the game.
Now the 2-2. Well hit down the left field line. Way back in.
It seemed like we were on the field for a good 10 or 15 minutes after that home run, when in essence it was about 2 minutes. Things just went so quickly, and I was definitely elated. I enjoyed the pandemonium. The celebration at home plate is something that's going to stick out as my number one highlight in 16 years of Major League Baseball. When you take a defeat and turn it around the way we did with Joe's swing and turn it into victory and have it mean so much, particularly to a player like myself who had never been there before after 16 years, to be in that winner's circle, that's where the emotion took over.
Paul Molitor, a world champion for the first time, and Cito Gaston said, in particular, he wanted the Blue Jays to repeat, so win it for Paul Molitor.
Baseball Cinderfella, Paul Molitor. Still to come as we look back at 1993. We'll count down the top 5 and many more of those wild, wacky, wonderful plays of the year.
But up next, the Canadian Football League hope to find a nugget in their newest franchise as they unveil the Sacramento Gold Miners.
Now, everybody, please stand and welcome your Gold Miners!
Why I'm coming back, I sort of equated to you get knocked down and you got to get up. I don't want to get up. If I did what I want to do, I'd be in Montana fishing, and raising Buffalo and not dealing with this. Can't quit. I just can't quit. I'm not coming back because it's going to make me happy. I'm coming back because I've got to do it.
The '83 team taught me about dreaming and the importance of dreams, because nothing can happen if not first a dream. If you have someone with a dream, if you have a motivated person with a dream and a goal and a vision, if you have someone who never gives up, who has great hope, and that team taught me the persistence, the idea of never, ever quitting. Don't ever give up.
Two remarkable men, Jim Valvano and Bob Ojeda of the Indians. You know, Gino, many people argued that the Canadian Football League had to do something, and in 1993 they did.
Yeah, the CFL went international with its first American franchise.
And as the new year begins, well, there are more on the way.
In the beginning, there were two.
We felt it was important to announce today that we took a vote of 7-1 in favor of expansion, and we'll be admitting both San Antonio and Sacramento into the league for 1993.
2 weeks later, there was only one.
Last night around 5:30, I made the decision to suspend the application of San Antonio for the 1993 season.
Obviously, this growth was not going to come without its growing pains. Expansion to the States was going to happen, but San Antonio's pullout was a public relations nightmare for the league. Ironically, Smith's bad news came on the same day that two established teams were also making CFL history. The Edmonton Eskimos and Toronto Argonauts made the largest trade in league history. 16 players, including quarterback Tracy Ham, were on the move. Meanwhile, the discussion over expansion continued. There were fears that this would be the beginning of the end of Canadian players in the CFL, and the league would soon abandon its unique qualities. The league allowed Sacramento to field a team of only American players. Some saw this as a sure ticket to the Grey Cup, but when the Gold Miners faced the Ottawa Rough Riders in that historic first game, they did not dominate. In fact, they didn't even win. The Gold Miners played like an expansion team most of the season, finishing with a record of 6-12. Off the field, they didn't do as well as hoped either. Attendance at Hornet Field averaged around 17,000 a game. Still, the initial expansion experiment was deemed a success, and after announcing plans to expand to Las Vegas for '94, the CFL introduced the posse to the public this past month. Further expansion to the U.S. is still possible. On the field, much of the news came from Ottawa, where the controversial Dexter Manley was brought back by the owners against the coach's wishes. Manley played sparingly. The Rough Riders lost frequently, and in the end, the Glebermans fired head coach Ron Smeltzer. In Hamilton, the Tiger Cats were on the verge of collapse all season until businessman David McDonald came to the rescue with a large infusion of cash in October. Through the 18 games of the regular season, two teams looked head and shoulders above the rest. The Calgary Stampeders and Winnipeg Blue Bombers looked set for a second straight Grey Cup matchup. Despite a season-ending injury to quarterback Matt Dunnigan, the Bombers held up their end of the bargain. But league MVP Doug Flutie and the Stampeders stumbled in the snowy Western Final against arch-rivals Edmonton. At the Grey Cup in McMahon Stadium, game MVP Damon Allen paced the Eskimos to an early lead that the Bombers couldn't erase. The Edmonton Eskimos were 1993 Grey Cup champs.
And now, in the true spirit of the North America Free Trade Agreement, as the CFL heads south, the NBA is heading north.
And as Major League Baseball had proven, there was an untapped market in Canada just waiting to be harvested.
The seed for NBA expansion was planted during the All-Star break in February. It was there the Palestra Group from Toronto submitted a $100,000 application fee. And a couple of months later, with more Toronto groups showing interest, the NBA decided to expand outside the United States. In September, 4 Canadian groups made presentations to the Expansion Committee in New York. From Vancouver, Canucks owner Arthur Griffiths, the only one to show up with a name and a logo for the proposed team. And 3 strong Toronto bids. Palestra, now bolstered by the support of Labatt's and the Bank of Commerce, the Cole Ballard Group, which had added former NBA star Magic Johnson to the fold, and the Bitove Group, PBF, the last Toronto group to enter and the last to present. Bitove wound up first, getting official acceptance from the League Board of Governors November the 4th. The price, $125 million U.S. They also decided to consider adding Vancouver once the group's financing is in place.
I'm very happy and proud to announce that
Toronto will become a member of the NBA for the 1995-96 season.
They were overwhelmed with the demographics, the size, and everything else the city brought, and I think they were struck as much as we, the people of Toronto, were that we weren't a member of the NBA sooner.
We are as excited as we can get about our Canadian expansion, about the city of Toronto, the province of Ontario.
But the league and the province are still negotiating the future of NBA games appearing on the Pro Line Lottery. A solution stands in the way of Canada's first NBA team hitting the courts in 1995.
Maybe Vancouver, too. When we return, some other names and stories that have made headlines this year.
And if you stuck with Sports Desk through the year, you certainly didn't miss anything.
I only listen to TSN, and they tell me what's happening. Frankly, I have no knowledge otherwise about what's going on at all.
Bouncing ball, nice play by Murray. He dropped the ball for an error.
Anthony Young sweating this one out on the losing side of his 24th consecutive loss.
And the ground ball is short. Velarde, he did it! He did it! No-hitter for Jim Abbott.
Welcome back, and we have tried to deal with some of the major sports stories during this past year.
But there are still many others we haven't touched on yet. All of them important, certainly all of them newsmakers in 1993.
Canada's national junior hockey team clinches the gold in Sweden, beating Japan 8-1. It's our third World Junior title in 4 years. The Buffalo Bills are thrown for their third straight Super Bowl loss, this time routed by Dallas 52-17. Cincinnati Reds owner Marge Schott is suspended from baseball for 1 year and fined $25,000 for racial slurs. Canadian Lisa Walters wins the Hawaiian Open for the second straight year. Her 6-under total of 210, one better than Nancy Lopez. New York Yankees owner George Steinbrenner's suspension is over. He returns to a huge welcome at the Yankees spring training base. Ben Johnson tests positive for steroids once again. He's banned for life by the IAAF, then decides to retire from track and field. North Stars owner Norm Green announces a move from Minnesota to Dallas effective at the end of the NHL season. Eisler and Brasseur win gold at the World Figure Skating Championships in Prague. Canadian domination continues the next day when Kurt Browning and Elvis Stoico take gold and silver. At the World Indoor Track and Field Championships in Toronto, Mark McCoy hurdles to gold, while Bruni Surin wins the 60 meters in a meet record-tying time. It's a clean sweep for Canada at the World Curling Championships in Geneva. Russ Howard of Penetanguishene wins the men's crown, while Regina's Sandra Peterson takes the women's. Baseball debuted 2 new teams. Joe DiMaggio helped launch the Marlins in Florida, while the Rockies' home opener drew a record 80,000 as they smashed the Major League season mark with over 4.4 million fans. Bernard Longer breezed to a 4-stroke victory at the Masters, the biggest winning margin at Augusta in 10 years. In one of the most significant trades in NFL history, Joe Montana is dealt from San Francisco to Kansas City. 12-to-1 shot Sea Hero romps to a 2.5-length win at the Kentucky Derby, beating the favorite Prairie Bayou. Emerson Fittipaldi wins the second Indy 500 of his career, edging out pole sitter Arie Luyendyk by just under 3 seconds. Alain Prost wins the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal, then goes on to the Formula One driving title before retiring at the end of the year. The new Hockey Hall of Fame opens in Toronto. As well as usual hall artifacts, the new shrine includes many interactive exhibits. Pete Sampras knocks off Jim Courier in the Wimbledon final. He would add the U.S. Open crown and the world's #1 ranking by year's end. Steffi Graf won 3 Grand Slam events in '93, including Wimbledon, and moved back to #1. And Canadian Grant Connell and Pat Galbraith lost in the Wimbledon men's doubles final.
A decisive winner of the Queen's Plate.
And the Canadian Super Horse goes on to win the Triple Crown and the Molson Million. Greg Norman shoots a British Open record .267 to win the event for the second time. Just a month later, he would lose the PGA Championship to Paul Azinger on the second playoff hole. Fire at Fulton County Stadium on Fred McGriff's first day in Atlanta leaves the Braves red hot. They make up 9 games on the Giants to win a thrilling pennant race on the season's final day. Reggie Jackson is inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame as the only inductee for '93. Ottawa reports allege the Senators conspired to throw their final games to secure the top draft choice. The NHL clears the team of throwing games, but fines them $100,000 for comments suggestive of such a plan. Al Unser Jr. takes the checkered flag at the Vancouver Indy. Pole sitter Scott Goodyear finishes 4th. Canadian Don Coe Jones finishes 1 shot out of a playoff at the Des Maurier Classic as Brandy Burton edges out Betsy King.
Daddy, won a medal.
In fact, Canada won 7 medals for its best ever showing at the World Rowing Championships, 4 gold, 2 silver, and a bronze. Just off a 9-game win streak, the Expos debut Quebec favorite Denis Boucher. He performs well in front of 40,000 when the Expos climb back into the pennant race. David Frost scores a one-stroke victory over Fred Couples at the Canadian Open. He finishes at 9 under. Dave Winfield records career hit number 3,000, the 19th man in history to accomplish the feat.
Feels like the weight of the world is off of me. I really feel good now.
Nolan Ryan's final career start is marred by injury. He leaves in the first inning with a torn elbow ligament, capping off an injury-plagued final season.
The winner is Sydney, Australia.
The Australian city will host the 2000 Olympics, edging out favored Beijing in the balloting. George Brett decides to retire after a 20-year career with the Kansas City Royals. A Disney spectacle in Anaheim as the Mighty Ducks launch their inaugural season. 4 days later, the expansion Panthers debut in Miami. News that Peter Pocklington has filed papers with the NHL of an intent to move the Edmonton Oilers to the U.S. His well-publicized battle with Northlands has been a year-long affair. A parachutist drops in on the World Heavyweight Championship in Las Vegas as Evander Holyfield regains the title from Riddick Bowe in a 12-round decision. Barry Bonds pays dividends on his $43 million contract with the Giants, becoming the first player ever to win 3 MVP awards in 4 years. NHL officials go on strike, leaving the games in the hands of replacements. After long and sometimes bitter talks, the strike ends 15 days later. The Hockey Hall of Fame inducts 10 new members, including former Montreal Canadiens Guy Lapointe and Steve Shutt, and Islander goalie Billy Smith. The Montreal Expos complete a stunning trade, sending star second baseman Delino DeShields to the Dodgers in exchange for pitcher Pedro Martinez. The U of T Blues block a dinosaur field goal attempt in the dying seconds to win the Vanier Cup 37-34. Montreal synchronized swimmer Sylvie Frechette finally receives her gold medal a year and a half after a judging error at the '92 Summer Olympics.
Gino, I think athletes often like to think of themselves as being invincible. It comes with the mental preparation of playing any sport.
But the truth of the matter is, Vic, that they are as mortal as the rest of us. And perhaps this year we learned that like never before. Mark Whitten. Of course, it wouldn't be a year-end show without the plays of the year.
Certainly not, though sometimes weird, sometimes wacky, sometimes wonderful bits of highlights.
And like any sporting event, we can't start without the national anthems.
Oh, Canada, strong and clean, and stand on guard, oh, Canada.
Oh, say, can you see? And the rockets, red flag.
Oh, there were some songs sung blue in '93, some blue days, some boo days for lots of athletes. Chuck Daly needed a net, not the nets. Some referees paid a penalty for handing out a penalty. You know, some days you should just stay in bed. Or how about Robin Ventura, who took a legendary beating from the legend. Boy, hey, that points. And there were the odd plays of '93, like Steve Young, 49ers, passing to himself. Or,
Here comes Van Slyke. They're sending Maddox to throw home. Oh, my goodness, he's safe.
Turk Wendell had him jumping at Wrigley.
Look at him jump over the line.
Do you think this guy graduated from Colgate? For Cowboys fans in '93, it was the year to let it be.
Leon left. Can he go all the way? He's being chased by BB. Watch out. Did he get across? No.
Someone touches the football here. Watch what happens. It's Leon left. No.
Yes, they're at the post. Some jockeys just coursing around. Or will they monkeying around in the year's hottest thoroughbred race? All right, now, was it good? Oh, come on, I said it was good. Did you say it was good? Oh, it's bad, it's bad. Hey, no time to take your seat. Here are some of the hot plays for '93. Pavel Bure. Wendell Clark. Scott Pellerin. Talk about your passing fancy. Here's some fancy passing. MJ could do it all. LaFontaine to McGillney. McGillney soccer style to Sweeney to LaFontaine. And in baseball, Yankees Mike Gallego, Pat Kelly.
Stopped by Gallego to Kelly, a barehand pickup, a double play. Hit by Kelly. They still get the first and second.
In the outfield, what's better than Brian McRae? How about Chuck Carr?
Fielded Carr on the run, on the run, on the run. Oh, what a catch! Oh, my goodness! What a tremendous catch!
Now the top five of '93.
Double play ball. There's a backhand play that's nifty. There's one. High throw, and that is going to score one run, maybe two. Coming to the plate, the throw is high, and it scores two. The throw to third is high, and it might score another one.
That's to LaFontaine. He gets tripped up, gets it to May, and over the line. Here's May going in on goal. He shoots. He
Hill puts it on the floor. And stops and he brought it down. He brought the whole goal down.
Goodness.
Bowie was coming off the bench as Hill follows it almost and does bring down the entire backboard. High fly ball, right field deep. Canseco back to the track. Look it out. It is off his hand, it looked like. Now the 2-2. Well hit down the left field line. Way back and Joe Carter with a 3-run homer. The winners and still world champions, the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, number one. There simply isn't enough time in 60 minutes to touch on everything that went on in the world of sports in '93, but there are some other Canadian and world champions we shouldn't overlook.
Like biathlon's Miriam Bedard, speed skaters Natalie Lambert, Annie Perrault, Marc and Sylvain Gagnon.
How about cyclist Tanya Dubenkoff, or freestyle skiers Philippe Laroche, Jean-Luc Brassard and Katharina Kubenk.
All Canadians who made their marks as world champions. It has been a great pleasure to bring you the sports news and highlights throughout 1993.
And we certainly look forward to doing it all again about this time, 1994. I'm Vic Roeder.
And I'm Gino Retta. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everyone.
To all of you, from all of us at TSN.